Okay, today we're going to be going over a review of test one. We might not be able to do this for every test. This is something that happened because we kind of got ahead and I already had videos made for the previous lectures. So the first thing I'm going to do today is actually start with an overview. So just really start with all the topics that are going to be on this test and kind of write them out. And that way, if you're studying for it and you want to make a little kind of topical list of what to study for, these are going to be what really the topics come from. So let me switch over to my desktop camera. Give me 1 second here. I get a better pen. All right. Okay, so we started in 1.5, which was just solving quadratics. You have to know how to solve quadratics, period. But I'm going to tell you throughout this semester, we're going to utilize two forms of solving the most, which is factoring. You're going to have to know how to factor for a lot of different reasons. And then the quad formula, right? The quad formula. Now, also in that section, we went over the square root, solving by the square root method. So I'll just put square root method here. And not that the square root method isn't nice to know. It is very nice to know. But you can really kind of get away with only knowing factoring and quadratic formula the rest of the semester. The square root method actually just comes in handy whenever a quadratic equation is set up perfectly to solve for it in that manner. So you got to know how to factor. You got to know how to use the quadratic formula for almost the entire semester. Almost every test will have one of these two things on it. Okay, and not necessarily that it's with solving. In this situation, it's brought to you. It's given to you in a solving section. It could be simplifying or something of that nature. But for 1.5, it was solving quadratics, and we went over 3 ways to solve the quadratic, and there they are. And then 1.7 was just a little lecture about interval notation. You will use it in that 2.6 section, but for now, or really in 2.1 when it goes over domain. But I'm not going to talk about it here because it's really just used. Remember 1.7, I guess I'll write it down. 1.7 was on interval notation. And there's not going to be a question that specifically asks you about interval notation. You'll just have to put solutions in interval notation when you find an answer that's an interval and not a single answer, a single distinct solution. Okay, 2.1, let me go through here so I don't accidentally skip something. 2.1 was really just an introduction to functions. You're going to have to know how to identify a function. And we went over a few different ways to identify a function by its graph. Remember, it passes the vertical line test. By the equation, where you put in, an x or a number, and you get back just a single y value. So you put in an x value, you get back a single y value. So given a graph or an equation, you have to identify if it's a function, and also function notation. Function notation was introduced in 2.1 as well. Okay. Make sure I've got it all. Oh, okay, and then we've got domain and ranges of functions. Now, this domain range is from a graph. But then we also had the domain and the range from a set. So if we had a set, like a set of coordinates, we have to identify what's the domain and what's the range. So all of those are on there, or they might be on there in some shape or form. So identify if a graph is a function, if an equation is a function, identify function notation, how to put something into function notation, and then the domain and range from a graph and the domain and range from a set of coordinates. Okay, that's all in the homework from that section and in the lecture. So 2.2, I'll get to 2.6 last, I guess. I'll come back to that. But 2.2 was one of my favorite titled sections, more on functions. Give me just 1 second, guys. I gotta make sure I don't kind of cart in front of the horse. Yeah. 2.2 was more on functions. It really had a lot on functions. First, it talked about increasing and decreasing, where a function is increasing, decreasing, or constant. And then it went to the symmetry of functions, which was, they're really even, odd, or neither, right? Even, odd, or neither, or neither, however you want to pronounce it. So increasing, decreasing, even, odd. Ooh, you know, with increasing and decreasing constant, we had the relative max and min as well. I forgot to say that. That's part of the increasing, decreasing constant, right? Because if when you're increasing and then you go to decreasing, boom, you've got a relative max. Decreasing to increasing, you have a relative min. So then we had the even and odd symmetry. And I believe the last thing in the section was piecewise functions. Piecewise functions. So that was all from 2.2. Yes. And then, okay, up here in the very top right, because I'm running out of room down here, 2.6 is finding the domain of a function, domain of the equation of a function. So find domain given function equation. So a little different than a graph, right? When you visually see where the domain is, it's a little different than if you're given the equation and asked for the domain, okay? So these are all the topics that are going to be on test 1, okay? The instructions are going to be, you're going to have 75 minutes. It's an hour and 15 minutes like if it was a regular test. 75 minutes. For this test, unlike the final, you can use all your notes. That's fine, open book. But realize the final is not going to be open book, open note, okay? I'm not worried about that. You can use your calculator. Once you start, you have to finish. So once you start, you must finish. So tomorrow we won't have class. That whole day is really dedicated to the test. So it's going to be open from, I'll probably open it from like 7 a.m. to midnight. So you've got that entire time to take it tomorrow, which is what, Tuesday, March 16th. You've got from 7 a.m. to midnight to take test 1. And it'll take you 75 minutes. Once you start it, you have to finish it. All open note, open book it. That's not a big deal. Okay? I'm trying to think of other questions maybe that students have asked in the past. And I can't think of, okay, you two that are in here, do you guys have any questions? You can ask me anything at this point if you want to put it in the chat or if you want to just ask. Let me turn my volume up. I'm not sure I can hear you.
Not one particularly about this test, but the final is in person, right?
Yes. So let's go over that again. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So your final, you need to have set up through the proctoring service, which if you go to your Blackboard shell right now and you click on final exam information, the very kind of bottom tab on the left, I go over a little video on how to register for the final. And it is in person. It's proctored. It's on campus. So and you'll also need to email me tomorrow. I'll email this all out, guys. So email me tomorrow what time and date you have set your final up for, and then I've got to cross match that with Miss Hayward's schedule. She's our testing center coordinator. So I'm going to cross-check that with hers to make sure that we're all on the same page. And that's the actual final time. So email me. I'm going to put that in my to-do list real fast. Hold on a second. email about proctored final. There, boom. Okay, good. So email me about the final, and we should be good to go.
I'm glad you cleared that up because I had no idea about the emailing portion or anything like that, but I had everything else already filled in, and
Oh, I haven't told you to email. Did you already fill out to take the final? Have you got that part done?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. No, I haven't told you to email me yet. That was, I did tell you to get it done by the first test. That's the only information I've told you. I'll email everybody out with that just so everybody can kind of reply back to me and let me know
fair enough.
When their test is.
That's about all the questions I have. I gotta study, so.
Yes, we all need to study, right? And guys, this test snowballs real fast, right? It's gonna come at you fast. And you guys knew this. If you're in the first 7 weeks, it was like that.
I feel like the first 7 weeks was gonna be easier than this. So we'll see how that goes.
It's a different set of content, right?
Yeah.
It's a set of content. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I didn't think today would take long. Usually these reviews don't take long because I'm just not teaching anything really. Okay. If you guys don't have any questions, I'll stick around if you need me, but I'm going to stop the video. So, and you guys that are watching this later on today, if you want to email me, that's fine and ask a question. Not a big deal. Okay. I will see you all later. I'm going to just pause this and I'll stick